All right, my friends, it is now time for the Soulful Psalm segment of Beacon of Truth. The Soulful Psalms, we take one of the Psalms from the book of sung praises from the wisdom literature of the Old Testament that we hear in every holy sacrifice of the Mass, and we connect that Psalm to your everyday lived experience so that God's word comes alive in your lives and comes alive in your hearts. And so when we hear the Psalms at Mass, you're like, okay, now you're engaging God's word in a much deeper and more meaningful way. Well, today we're continuing our look at Psalm 35. So Psalm 35, of course, is in book 1 of the Psalms, Psalms 1 through 41. All of those Psalms are attributed to David. Now, remember, we talked about the different books. The books of the Psalms are broken up into 5 books, mimicking the Torah, right? The law. So this is God's law articulated in the Psalms. So Psalms 1 through 41, 42 to 72, 73 to 89, 90 to 106, and then Psalms 107 to 150, right? So today, Psalm 35. Very simple prescript or superscript of this psalm. It just says Ha David, of David. Very, very simple. And I love how David comes out here swinging at the beginning of the psalm. Contend, O Lord, with my contenders. Fight those who fight me. Take up your buckler and shield. Arise in my defense. So I love David doesn't mince words a lot of his. He just comes out swinging. Here's the problem. Here's what's going on. Bam. He just states it plainly. So here, obviously, again, I believe this psalm was written during the persecution of David when Saul was trying to take David's life. We see this in 1 Samuel 17 through about 25 or 26 is a persecution of David. He probably wrote this psalm during that time. And so David states the problem clearly. But we're diving in today at Psalm 35, starting at verse 20. All right, starting at verse 20. So he says, they speak no peace to the quiet ones who live in the land. So he's talking about his oppressors, his foes, those who are persecuting him. They speak no peace to the quiet ones who live in the land. Should probably go. I should have went back and looked at what the Hebrew says when it says the quiet ones. So they're not seeking peace. They're always seeking violence, or they're seeking to disrupt what's going on in a particular in my life or in the life of other people. You know, so they're not a people of peace. They're always trying to stir up problems, stir up issues. Rather, he said, they make deceitful plots, and with mouths wide open, they utter their cry against me. Yes, yes, our eyes have seen it. So what are they doing? They're making statements that are deceitful, and they're lying. They're basically lying. They say, yes, we saw this person do it. When they didn't see it all, they're giving false testimony. Right, they're giving false testimony. And even when you go to court right now, right, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Right, so you tell the truth. So what does that mean? You're going to tell the truth, and you're not going to lie. Right, you're going to tell the whole truth. So yes, okay. Here's what happened, but you only say part of the truth. You're holding back some of that truth that should also be part of the narrative. But instead, you're holding it back. You're not telling the whole truth. Yes, I saw this particular thing happen, but there's also another perspective that would shed a deeper or greater light on that particular incident, but you're withholding that back. So you are telling the truth, but you're withholding back also part of the truth that could add more clarity to the situation. And finally, nothing but the truth, not your opinion, not speculation. So sometimes you hear a defense attorney object. Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. Objection, Your Honor, argumentative. Objection, Your Honor, introducing facts that are not in evidence. So those kinds of things. So you're telling nothing. You're adding things that are on top of the truth. So David here is saying that whoever's persecuting him they're lying. They're not just withholding truth. They're flat out open their mouths and lying against me, making false accusations against me. That's very dangerous. Because in fact, if you look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it talks about thou shalt not kill, right? The fifth commandment. It also talks about killing a person's reputation, using slander and lies and calumny to destroy a person's reputation that doesn't deserve it. That's very, very, again, it's under the fifth commandment about killing. So obviously, this is very, very important. And in verse 22, O Lord, you have seen, do not be silent. So David is stating the problem, but of course, God already knows what the problem is, even before David says anything. God knows what the problem is, but David states it anyway. Lord, do not stand afar off. Lord, look, you know everything. You see everything. You're omnipotent. You're omnipresent. Your knowledge goes beyond anything of heaven and earth because you created those things. Lord, you're very aware. Don't hold back, Lord. I'm in pain right now. I'm in travail. You see what's happening. Lord, help me. Come to my aid. Come to my rescue. Don't stay aloof from my pain. Don't stay far off from my anxiety. Be with me in this moment of pain. Be with me in my trials that I'm going through in my life. And Lord, not only be with me, but also bring your justice. Right? Let your justice shine forth. You, God, are truth itself. Let your truth be the light in the darkness of the lies that are being spoken of against me. And we see this sometimes even in the workplace. You'll have someone who's trying to climb the ladder, and they're going to climb that ladder by climbing over your back to climb to that next rung. And they'll say things or do things or sabotage a project that you're working on or a work product so that they seem that you seem inept in your boss's eyes, and they seem like the one who's the one who knows what they're doing, and they're trying to cast you in a very negative light. That's sinful. That's very, very sinful. And so David here is asking the Lord to intervene with his justice in the midst of this injustice that's occurring. Then he says, awake. I love that. He says, awake. And here it's declarative, right? It has an exclamation point after it. So he says, Lord, in a sense, you're like asleep. Awake, O Lord. Wake up. I love how human that is, that interaction, where David is confident enough in his relationship with the Lord, where he tells him, hey, Lord, wake up. Hey, over here, Lord. Right here. I love that. And stir to my defense, to my cause, O Lord and my God. So come, Lord, stand with me, defend me, and exact your justice in this situation. I love the confidence of David.
For more on the Psalms with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, check out Beacon of Truth weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio and streaming everywhere you listen to podcasts.